Hi, and welcome to I'm Not Cancer show. I am Carol Ricard. I am a stage 3 cancer survivor and creator of this show. And the mission is to inspire, inform, and empower those whose lives have been touched by cancer. I know firsthand what that journey is like, and I had an advantage being a healthcare provider for 30 years. And so my mission is just to share the resources that I had access to. And I am joined today by a really good friend of mine, Alison Sahoo. And full disclosure, I've known her for many, many years. So please welcome Alison.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Carol. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited. Never mind the fact that it's been 2 years since we saw each other.
I know.
You know, it's like, you look great. I mean, you don't look any older. You in fact look younger. So.
Oh, thank you. You do too. You do too. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, you were the first person I thought of when I thought of informing people. Because you and I have known each other for many years, and I knew that you had, gotten into Reiki. Mm-hmm. And had been a practitioner, and even I think became a teacher. I don't know. Am I giving you more? Okay, good. And then the Pranic Healing. And I know when you were one of the first people I called when I was diagnosed.
Yeah,
I remember having this conversation. I was in North Carolina driving home.
That's right. That's right.
And just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and I just knew you and the work that you had done and believed so passionately in, and how it really, how do you describe, like, even Reiki, but pranic healing?
Yeah. So I'm focused on pranic healing. I've learned a lot of things along the way. Back in 2013, when I started this, I was at a point where, like you, I was in a situation where things were really bad and the typical solutions weren't working. The healthcare system and all those other sort of resources that I was accustomed to using weren't working. So I was really receptive to other approaches, and I did do a lot of information gathering. Reiki was one area that I gathered, but many things.
I was going to say research, because you are like, that's kind of in your DNA, right?
Yeah.
Researching.
It is. And I mean, I was a professional researcher. I was a professional market analyst before I started the energy healing.
Yes.
So that was a very different way of living, in front of a computer, writing reports all day and working with information, going to working with energy to help people feel better.
Yeah.
So I've been practicing pranic healing since the end of 2013. And I did learn a few other things along the way, just for context and for that broad understanding. But now I consider myself a pranic healer.
Yeah, and I remember us, talking, because, and I think I had a full plate at a time, but I say to people this: I didn't use you then, but let me tell you what, I would have. I ended up in myself, because you and I had this conversation. It's like, all right, which direction do I go? Do I kind of go this, kind of non-traditional, I like to call it just non-traditional sort of approach, or traditional? And for me, when we talked, and I reached a place where I wanted I wanted as many tools helping me as possible.
Yeah.
And so what I like to say to people is that it really doesn't matter which treatment approach you kind of use. It's just really using all that you can in order to help you, feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. There's a lot available, and it is all wonderful. It is.
Yeah. Now, so, and I know that you have actually had some cancer patients that you have worked with.
Yeah.
So when I said that word "worked with," and it's like, oh, well, I'm thinking to myself, well, how do you do pranic healing? What is working with somebody?
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly the way I think of it, working with someone. You know, it's not doing it to someone, it's doing it with someone.
Yeah. Wow.
So pranic healers, like many other types of energy healers, we work with the energy of the body. We do not touch the skin. We don't work on the muscular level. We work on the energy level. So most people find it to be a very relaxing experience.
Yeah.
A lot of people fall asleep during a pranic healing session. Some people who are more sensitive to energy will feel it move, which is really cool. You know, they'll say, oh, you know, I feel it here, I feel it there. And it's just a pleasant experience.
Yeah, I know for some people you're thinking, what the hell are they talking about, you know? But this comes back to this idea of energy. And really, you know, you made me think of when I was listening to you talk, I was thinking about, honestly, back my old days 30 years ago when I was at Hampton Hospital. And I had an art therapist who was, you know, very creative kind of type. And Karen did, I think they called it back there therapeutic touch.
Yes.
I think it was called this, that was what she was practicing. And I remember having a pain in my shoulder one time, and I was like, oh my God, my shoulders. She's like, well, why don't you come and I'll do that? And I have to confess, I remember thinking to myself, yeah, right, this is just bullshit, you know, kind of stuff. I'm like, all right. But she was my coworker, so let me just sit down in the office chair. And I was amazed because, you know, she had me close my eyes and I could feel the energy from her hands. And I was like, wait a minute. And I had to experience it for myself. And it was just sort of this amazing, you know, because I as a healthcare professional, I was trained, you know, 12-step, right? 12-step addiction. Now, there's just this one way to do thing, and there's this black and white, and it just completely opened up my world to like, oh, wait a second, you know, there is this sort of unseen and kind of energy. And it's so amazing because I think nowadays, we could say the word, you know, energy healer or healing energy or energy worker, and more people are going to know what it is.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely, most definitely. Yeah, no, I had the same reaction, you know, back when it was a little like, well, I don't know about this. This is really different. But when you're in a place where other things aren't working, you are just like you with cancer. You were willing to consider other things because you wanted a solution.
Yeah.
So, and you know, one of the things about pranic healing that that really made a difference for me was that quite a few pranic healers come from the healthcare profession. I know doctors, MDs who are pranic healers, DOs who are pranic healers. I know a lot of nurses, a lot of counselors and therapists. I also know engineers, accountants,
but that's,
teachers.
You know, but it's pretty interesting because that broad swath, you know, and you know, let's face it. I mean, I think of, you know, it's like the stigma that exists around these sort of, well, people in the old days would call it alternative types, but I love the word, you know, well, it's being in healthcare, so there was alternatives, you know, right, approaches, and then, you know, we moved to complementary approaches, and now it's great that healthcare is reaching a place of integrative approaches. And those integrative approaches, in fact, where I was at Sloan Kettering, you know, is where I went for treatment. They have a huge integrative medicine department in New York City, you know, and they offer all these other, you know, sort of supportive resources to people there, all the way from, I mean, I know that I remember seeing Reiki, I didn't see pranic healing, acupuncture to meditation to yoga to all of these different ways that we can, you know, kind of, I think of it as fuel the body with really the good resources that it needs. So what how long makes me think, the healthcare person in me, how did pranic healing, or what's the history with it?
Yeah. So, pranic healing in its current form is relatively new. 1970s, 1980s were kind of the years when it was being developed. And it's based upon other practices like Reiki. There's a very rich tradition where pranic healing has synthesized elements from other energy healing modalities. But one of the differences with pranic healing is that everything has been validated. Clinical studies, for example. Clinical studies.
That is a really important point. I hate to interrupt you, but so my partner, she's gotten to where she kind of loves crystals, and quite honestly, I think she feels the energy of the crystals. But she is a logical kind of thinker, and I actually, when you had sent out that email and I'd kind of mentioned to her, that, well, you did this and you did this great thing, with the meetup that you did, and the first I know it was like, well, so where's the research? And I knew that from us having talked at times before that you were helping somebody actually do. I don't know, is that the book that was done, or is it another book where you were actually helping them sort of pull that research together?
I did, and it was actually a book related to using pranic crystals for pranic healing.
Okay.
Crystals for pranic healing.
Okay.
This book here is one of the one of the textbooks, and it's from the second level class. It's called Advanced Pranic Healing, and I brought it to show you some of the protocols for cancer. There's a whole chapter on cancer, tumors and cancer.
Tumors and cancer.
And when someone comes to me and says that they have cancer, they've been diagnosed, and they would like pranic healing as a complement to what they're otherwise doing, after talking with them and getting an idea of where they're at, after understanding what their diagnosis is, setting their expectations for what they can expect, I go to this book, I look at chapter 18, and I go down the menu here on lung cancer, breast cancer, liver cancer, colon cancer, brain cancer, or eye cancer.
Wow.
Because there are protocols. There are specific protocols to treat each of those cancers.
Wow.
And I've used some of them very effectively. They're diagrams, and each protocol goes step by step and tells you what to do, and each protocol has been validated.
Yeah. Well, when I saw that picture, it made me think of my acupuncturist, and when I see those, the pictures that she has up on the wall. And it really is about those energy points in your body and just kind of recreating the balance, if I'm kind of saying this right, and I don't know, but and I'll be honest with you, I used to think the same thing about acupuncture. I used to think, oh my goodness, it's just like a bunch of hocus pocus, sort of. But that was because that was my old filter, that was just raised in this very traditional, conventional sort of medical, honestly for me, the medical model. And we know that that's a broken model because it's only treating the illness and it's not focused on really wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I come from that way of thinking as well, because my specialty with the research analysis, with the market analysis, was healthcare. So, for me, it was all about studies, it was all about data, it was all about everything being validated. So it was really a leap for me to start thinking in terms of things that could not be seen, because generally speaking, the energy that we work with as pranic healers or Reiki practitioners or healing touch or anything else,
or even acupuncturists, right? I mean, technically you can't even see that energy. And so for you too, it was this is kind of like a whole different world and language.
It is. Yeah, it most definitely is. And, even though most people, I won't say everyone, but most people cannot see the energy with their physical eyes, There are other ways that we can measure it and measure the effects of it. So, you know, as you learn about this and as you experience it, as you experience the effects and the benefits of it, as you talk to other people, and I had to talk to a lot of people, let me tell you, you start being able to understand, you know, for yourself what this is and how it works.
Yeah. When you were talking, you know, what I thought about was, I thought about our mutual friend Barbara, and who, you know, I would say her background has also been very, you know, sort of, I don't want to say professional, but coming from the same sort of mindset, you know, and then when she said, well, that you were offering this weekend, you know, kind of training, and that she was going.
Yep.
And I just thought, wow, because I knew that she had experienced it and had the benefit of that. And, you know, just somebody I knew personally who just was so moved by just how much better she felt. It was like she wanted to do that. And she, you know, it's funny because I first met Barbara at Laughter Yoga leader training.
That's right.
Yeah, which was, I could tell you the year, 2011. Oh my God, 10 years ago. Yeah. I had signed up for a Laughter Yoga leader workshop that Bev was doing, and it was me, Barbara, and one other person in the whole weekend workshop, and it was just the three of us, and it was marvelous. But I know that she, you know, is kind of just felt so much better, even after just coming to some of those Sunday sessions that you do, which we will let people know how they could find you here in a minute. But I think that that's the amazing thing to me too, is that it's measured and validated, because for people like Laura who were very, let me see the research, let me see the data, let me see and you're right, you can measure, you know, energy. Listen, your electrician comes to your house, right?
Absolutely,
he puts a little thing in the socket and he can kind of measure the energy. I think of it that way too sometimes. It's invisible, you know, but it's all around us.
Yes.
And, you know, and environment too, you know, can kind of produce or steal away energy, I would think too.
Yeah, and that is part of it. There's a lot to learn with this, I have to say. You know, when you first start learning pranic healing, and typically what happens, and this happens, I think, in a lot of professions, someone goes to a pranic healer. You know, they have some sessions, they see a big benefit, and they want to learn how to do it. Because that way they can do it. They become a believer.
They're a believer, I was going to say.
And they want to be able to do it for their family. They want to be able to do it when they have an ache or pain.
Can you?
Yes, you can.
You can?
Yes, you can.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, you can. And you know, a lot of the people who learn pranic healing just learn it so that they're not going to be dependent on medications or whatever it is, so just so they can feel better.
Wow, I did not know that. That's really amazing. You know, I mean, it's, you know, my own philosophy about cancer, you know, and for the longest time I kind of was like, oh, I just sort of keep it quiet and not tell two people, you know, I don't want to alienate people. But what I've come to understand is that, you know, I like to say is that there are two philosophies. There's the fighting philosophy and there's the healing philosophy. You know, the fighting is, you know, people who see cancer as something to beat, to kick its butt, to, you know, defeat, to do this. Me, having been a healthcare provider for 30 years and help people heal, I kind of was over here in healing, and to me that philosophy, and actually I have a new book coming out, I Am Not Cancer, is it, and I write about that in there, that it really is seeing cancer just as an illness, like any other sort of condition in the body, and if you give it the right resources, that it can heal and return to homeostasis. and it helps that my father was actually a physician who was way ahead of his time. But that's when I think of what we're talking about and why I see that is such a valuable tool, is really helping people heal what might be sort of out of alignment. That's kind of how I think about my acupuncturist, right? It's just and it's amazing because there's more and more research, because I even remember acupuncture. Well, there was a time where even chiropractors were quacks.
True, this is true. No, and you're absolutely right. It is about bringing the body into alignment. You're in a very different mindset when you're thinking about fighting something.
Yes.
You're feeding that bad wolf. Or
what they say. The energy. The picture I came up with in my head is I think of energy as well. And when you're fighting, the energy is going away from you.
Right.
Right. And when I'm healing, I'm bringing that to me in that way. Yeah. But I love what you said about the bad wolf too, because it's true that's that Indian. I don't know, saying about.
Yeah, it was going around Facebook for a while, but it's true. What you resist persists.
Yes.
If you put your energy into pushing something away, you are always basically going to have it because you're engaged with it.
Yeah.
But when you take an integrative approach of coming into harmony and rebalancing, that is usually more effective in bringing you to where you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was fortunate because that's what my dad did. He was a healer. In fact, I don't say he was a doctor. He was way ahead of his time. And I don't know if I ever told you this, but as a young girl, I'd see him have people come in wheelchairs because their arthritis would be so bad. Mm-hmm. And then 6 months later, be walking with a cane. And of course, his treatment wasn't medicine. It was just sort of these natural, kind of, I think one was calcium, vitamins, just giving the body back what it really needed. And then seeing, and diet, and just treating thing I love about pranic healing too is that you're treating this whole person,
right?
As opposed to, I have a girlfriend who was recently diagnosed with a cyst on her ovary. Now they're not quite sure what it is, but she has this doctor over here, surgeon, who just takes care of cysts. Then she had a kidney transplant, and so she has her kidney doctor, and this doctor was thinking, well, why didn't they just take the cyst out? I mean, like there's these divisions. I think of it as is, and truthfully, a good team, a good cancer team is, people that are all sort of working towards the same thing. It's just, and I knew that you had, what filed it away from me too was you had saying this about the cancer protocols, and that there had been some people that you had worked with, and what we were talking about on one of my other shows too was your mindset. And how your mindset is really critical. And I would think the same thing would have to be with pranic healing. Like if your mind is closed, to this isn't going to help me, kind of thing, or.
It depends. It depends. I've worked on a lot of people. I've worked on a lot of people since 2013. For all different conditions. Some for cancer, a lot for COVID.
Wow.
I mean, I was counting up the COVID ones this morning, and I've done 569 COVID healings as of this morning. That's just COVID. That's only COVID.
That's only been within the time that COVID has been here, too.
Correct.
And brings up a really important point. How did you do these during COVID?
Remotely, distantly. And that's one of the cool things. I mean, look, we live in the age of wireless, telecommunication. We do many, many things remotely. We talk to people all around the world using a telephone, using FaceTime, whatever it is. You can practice energy healing, whether it's pranic healing or something else. Most modalities, acupuncture you can't, because you need that.
Popping in my head,
acupuncture is an form of energy healing, but you need the needle. You need the needle. So that you have to be in person. But pranic healing, I've done more work distantly than in person. I've done more distantly.
The thing I love about that is it just makes it a resource that's available to more people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that, it's really, And it is. It's kind of, I think that's the thing that one of the gifts I say of COVID, you know, is that it's really helped people open up to new ways, you know, like even traditional medicine, you know, doing telehealth visits. Listen, you know what? Doctors have had to adapt. Doctors that didn't want to adapt. And I think it's kind of brought the gift along with that. But that's amazing, like 500 and that many, you know, kinds of...
Pranic healers have been doing a lot of COVID work, a lot. I mean, there is several big projects, several big global projects where pranic healers are working on COVID patients.
Wow.
And I'm part of one group of about 200 pranic healers in the U.S. and U.S., North America, and South America. And overall, I think the current count is around 3,500 patients that we've worked on. Wow. And if I had to guess, I don't have recent numbers, but I think it's around like 150,000 sessions. Wow. And we've had a lot of successes. I mean, some tremendous successes. And that's just COVID. That's just COVID. But as you can tell, pranic healers love to count. We love to measure. Well, it's all numbers.
As a social worker who's had to, if it isn't written, it didn't happen kind of thing.
Right.
You know, and I think that to me is, I am just so grateful that you were able to join me here today, because, you know, the goal of the show is threefold. I said to inspire, and so that's stories of people, you know, like my guest from my previous show, and bringing in different tools and resources, just helping people learn, you know, more about all these available resources that are there for people. We have about a minute left. What I wanted to do is, if people wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? And I'll make sure that we put your information, you know, at the end here, so people, if they don't have a pen with them right now, they can, you know, catch it. But
wonderful. So I have a lot of things online, different social media and so on. They're all sort of connected through my website, which is pranichealingbuckscounty.com. Pranic Healing Bucks County.
Pranichealingbuckscounty.com.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great, because that's where I know, and I get some of the messages from you. And well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming. It's so good to see you, but I'm also just so excited to be able to share this with so many people.
Me too. You know, thank you for asking me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's just a wonderful opportunity to tell people more about this. So, Carol, thank you. Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap. So we'll see you here next time on I Am Not Cancer.